Now, Blahin, good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning, Gerry. I'm very well.
Good. Divorced, single for 14 years. Do you relate to what the letter writer had to say in the letter I read out before the 10 o'clock news? 47 years of age, can't find anybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's absolutely impossible to meet somebody genuine in Ireland. I've tried many, many routes.
What routes have you tried?
I've been internet dating, I've been meeting guys through friends, I've been going out and about myself. Many routes, but it's impossible to meet somebody who is genuinely interested in a relationship. I find that many men are interested in one-night stands. Many men on the internet are actually married and interested in having affairs. You know, you could name them, you know, but many routes that you go down, you could name the routes where you know where they're married. It's easy to suss them out, you know.
How do you suss out the married ones?
Because they eventually slip up, you know. They do eventually slip up.
And have you been out with a few fellas who are trying to pretend they were single?
Yes, I have indeed, yeah. They won't allow you, you know, go back to their place. If you're an independent person, there's no reason why you can't, you know, share your living area with somebody, ask them around for coffee or whatever.
That's true.
But these guys, you can't go near their place. There's always some excuse, you know. Oh, they live with their parents or some other relative or whatever, you know. There's always something, but you can suss them out quite quickly.
And how long would you've been? What would be the longest stretch you've been with one of these fakes?
I was with a guy for about 3 months.
3 months?
Yeah, but he was it was kind of a long-distance relationship.
Okay.
He was in another part of the country, and he used to come and visit me. Okay. And we'd go out this area. Once I went to his area and stayed in B&B. Didn't get to stay at his place, yeah.
So it was just a bonking session for him?
Well, if you got that, yeah, it would have been.
Oh, you didn't even deliver that, no?
Well,
Smart you.
Yeah.
Now, how dare I ask, and tell me to feck off if you think it's too rude, how old are you?
I'm 42.
You're not exactly ancient now, are you?
I'm not indeed.
No. And you have tried the internet. Did that deliver anything positive to you?
No, absolutely not.
Just weirdos, perverts and liars?
Yeah, absolutely. Not one genuine person on the internet have I met.
Even even good-looking fellas. Were any of the weirdos even good-looking?
Oh, they were. They would be. They would be. Yeah, they would be. Yeah. Some of them now I wouldn't. They wouldn't be my type. But some of them were fine-looking men. Fine-looking men,
right. So if you were looking for that kind of thing, it's a good place to go.
Absolutely, yeah.
What else have you tried? Tea parties?
No, I haven't been to any afternoon dinner dances or anything like that now. No, I've been introduced by friends to people. I've been out myself, out and about.
See, isn't it, I mean, despite the huge rate in marital breakdown and you would imagine subsequently the large number of available men and women looking for a second chance, really the old rules still apply, don't they? That the best place to meet somebody is amongst your peer group. So when you're 17, 18, 19, 20, up into your mid-20s, you're still going out with people who are single, who will introduce you to extended communities of friends.
Absolutely.
And that's really how certainly that's how I met my missus, right? If I recall, isn't it? Yeah, I think it was. And, when you're 42, that's just not there.
It's not the case anymore because everybody's in a relationship, everybody's married, everybody goes out as couples. You don't want to be the gooseberry in the situation. I have great friends, I have fantastic friends. I'm constantly out with them, socialising and what have you. But at the same time, you always feel you're the one that's on your own. You're the one that's going home alone. You're the one that, that you just feel inside in yourself, I really shouldn't be here.
And I think that it's largely fantasy, particularly peddled by American television programmes, where, a couple decide to fix up their single pal. I mean, that just doesn't work.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work because nobody knows you.
With the best will in the world, it just doesn't work.
No, it doesn't work because nobody knows you.
So what do you do?
That you know what you want at this stage in your life.
So what do you... I mean, you sound like you really do want somebody genuine to have a relationship with.
I'd love to have somebody in my life. I have everything else in my life that I want at the moment. I'm very independent. I've just done a degree. I've spent 7 years educating myself. Was married very young. My children are old enough now to do their own thing, And now it's time for me to have something in my life where I can have somebody to be there for and for them to be there for me.
Can I ask you, your ex-husband, is he sorted? Has he got somebody?
No, he hasn't. We're actually fantastic friends. We just met very young and married very young. We have a fantastic relationship now.
And do you ever talk about this aspect of your post-marital life together? Do you ever fess up to him and say, well, how are you getting on? I thought, geez, I can't meet anybody except chancers who just want to ride me and leg it.
He knows.
He knows.
He knows that I have been trying for a long time. He just thinks that it's funny. You know, he just laughs it off and says, oh, I'm going on another date. You know, I can talk to him and I can tell him that I'm going on a date or I've met somebody or whatever. You know, he's very, we're very good friends in that way.
Well, thank God for small mercies.
Oh, absolutely.
That's what I say
There's
to
no
that.
animosity whatsoever between us, which is fantastic because I know other relationships where things don't, you know, they don't pan out like that. But
Well, no, can you imagine going through what you're going through? Can you imagine looking for a second chance and also having the animosity of a failed relationship?
absolutely.
No, it'd be
yeah.
terrible. So what are you going to do? Hang around under Cleary's clock until you're 72? I mean,
Well, that'd be a trek. I live in Clare. That'd be
but
a
if you
trek.
thought the right man was there, I presume you'd get the bus, would you?
If I thought he was going to pass anytime soon, I'd stand there. I don't know what I'm actually going to do. I'm never going to give up, though. I'll never give up.
Oh, well, I'm glad to hear you say
whether
that.
this is in Ireland or abroad, I will eventually find.
Oh, no, don't
what
be
I
careful
want.
about going abroad. I mean, the recent stories, remember the Turkish wives thing? Be careful about
I
that.
know people in that situation as well, but I mean, I wouldn't. I'm
What about a
considering
toy boy?
Australia now. A toy boy?
Yeah.
If at all possible, anything. It'd have to be older than my son, otherwise there'd be questions asked.
Oh, I know. Yeah. How old is your son?
25.
Yeah, but yeah, no, I've actually heard of one or two women in your own sort of age group, which are 42,
Yeah.
and they've looked at the son's friends, and you have to say,
Yeah.
don't, I mean, I know
Yeah,
what you're
yeah.
thinking, Mrs. Don't go there, though.
Oh, they're nice to look at, you know.
Oh,
but
I
you
know
don't
they're
go
nice to
there,
look
you
at,
know.
and they would give it a go too, yeah, but it
a bit
wouldn't
of eye
be...
candy is okay,
Yeah,
but you know, you don't go there. You don't go there.
So
you
let's
know?
just look at the option. The internet hasn't worked for you. Now, you will get people phoning up and telling us that it has worked for them.
I'm sure it has been quite
And we
successful
always
for
get very
people, yeah.
sensitive, you know, internet dating service providers who will say, I'm absolutely outraged, I can't believe that you, blah, blah, and I've on my files 4,000 men and women who've all been happily hooked up. Where are they, says I. So that's not really going to work for you. You're not interested in going to the tea parties or the afternoon
No, not quite yet.
the afternoon dances.
Not quite yet. And I've tried Lisdoonvarna. That doesn't work either.
Did you try Lisdoonvarna?
Of course.
And what did you find in Lisdoonvarna?
Oh, I'm not even going to go there now. Because
Really?
It's just horrific experience, you know. That's the same as going into...
You want to come up to the bedroom? I've 2 pairs of underpants.
One is on me for the last 5 weeks.
That's right. But I tell you what, girl, I'll put on the new ones for you.
They're there, believe me.
Oh, I know they're there. I've been there. I've been there on a professional basis, obviously. I
You
was
ought to go in disguise. You
comparing
really ought to go
something.
in disguise. It would be worth it.
I'd hate to be doing what you're doing now.
Why? Oh,
Well,
no,
first
I'm
of all, I
very
wouldn't
happy
have
as it is,
the
you know.
skills. I wouldn't be able to. I wouldn't have the skills. I wouldn't be able to chat somebody up now. I'd start interviewing them. That's what would happen. Are you sure that you did that?
I think that sometimes I do that as well. I think maybe I scare them off as well with all the questions that I have. But you've got to get to know somebody, you know.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, also, how do you protect yourself? I mean, there's safety and security issues
Yeah, you've
involved.
got to get to
as
know
well.
somebody. And I do interrogate people at times, I think, you know. I can see it in their face. What's the next question going to be?
Have you had any really pathetic fellas?
I met a guy one day for a drink on Sunday afternoon, and there was absolutely no eye contact, which was the scariest moment.
That was because he was a wee bit shy. He'd never been with a woman before.
I'm sure he's been with many women, but
only animals.
I'm not going to go to that level now, Gerry.
So, and
But
what
this
happened?
guy
The
had
poor man couldn't maintain eye contact.
No eye contact whatsoever. He invited me for a drink. I ended up buying my own drink.
Oh, God.
I was halfway down that by the time he arrived, and he ordered his drink for himself, brought out the coppers from his pocket and counted them out to the barman, and it was a very embarrassing situation.
And what was the conversation like?
Oh, what he was after being at for the weekend.
And what would that have been?
Oh, just with friends in another part of the country.
Nothing
Absolutely nothing exciting.
And what did you say to him?
The conversation conversation was only about 5 minutes long because I knew that it was when he wouldn't make eye contact with me, I had absolutely no interest in even...
What was that about? What was he trying to achieve there?
I don't know whether it was shyness or what, but I mean, he was a 48-year-old man. Why he couldn't, throw his shoulders back and say, how are you? And, nice to meet you and what have you. Nothing, absolutely nothing,
And how was he dressed?
Just average, just average shirt, casual, jeans,
Right.
Just casual for a Sunday afternoon.
He didn't look at you.
No, I can't talk.
Where would you meet these chaps to assess them?
That was in a bar in the city of Limerick. I met him.
Right, okay.
Yeah. I wouldn't ever meet somebody in someplace that wasn't public,
Oh, no, you're dead right.
Yeah. But I have met some of the strangest people.
Was he the strangest, was he?
No, not quite.
What was the strangest?
Another guy that I met I met him actually twice, but he turned out to be just an absolute and total liar. He had a fairly prominent position, and I happened to know somebody in a similar position, and he found out for me that he was actually married.
Oh, God.
This
was he charming? Was it just the fact that he was a liar made him a weirdo?
Nice guy, but he was I was very suspicious when I saw number plate or L plates on his car. That
slow learner. But did you confront him with the lies?
I just no, I actually freaked that guy out, and he just texted me telling me that it was over, that I had freaked him out.
Oh, you freaked him out?
Yeah, because I told him that I know that you're married.
All right, and I'm going to tell your wife.
Oh, I wouldn't be interested in telling her. That's her business,
No, but I mean, I presume, did you not say that to him?
No, not at all. No, I didn't. No.
Well, you're painting a fairly bleak picture.
Oh, gosh.
No, I mean, not of you. You're a charming woman. You seem
Thank you very much.
Very up for it. I'd be very careful. I'd bring a lawyer, I think, if I was having the first date with you, though. But, I mean, what are your options now? I mean, I admire your chutzpah. You're going to keep at it, girl, you say.
I keep at it. I'm at the moment in the process of setting up a business because I've studied for the last 7 years.
Right. What were you studying?
Ceramic design.
What?
So, ceramic design.
Oh, ceramic design.
Yeah,
okay.
I was in College of Art and Design in Limerick. So I'm going to set up my own studio. I do mainly ornamental sculpture for gardens. And
maybe you'll meet somebody through that.
That's what I'm thinking now.
Would you like to come up and see my ceramics?
Yeah, would you like to be visiting my studio? But I won't ever give up. I do have notions of travelling to Australia now, and maybe that will happen fairly soon.
Well, by all accounts, they're fairly forward down there on this issue, so you might get... I mean, is it really that important? I often think sometimes when we talk about this subject that we're talking up the whole idea of a relationship as if it was sort of epicenter of existence.
It's not the be-all and end-all of my life anyway. I've got an awful lot more on,
But you'd like
I'm really, really content with my life. But I would love to have somebody special that's there for me. I've seen my friends in a relationship. I've one friend in particular, and she has met somebody after many years, and they are so together. It's just so wonderful to watch, and I do know that I have an awful lot to offer, and I would love to be able to offer that to somebody, but I will only offer it to somebody who's genuine.
I know. Well, I mean, you're hardly going to take a chancer just because he's charming.
Well, people do. People do. People can be desperate. I am not in the least desperate. I'm willing to bide my time.
Does the sex end of things matter? I mean...
Anybody can get sex. Sex is available anywhere, really. It all depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for a one-night stand, if you're looking for just a sexual partner, you can get a sexual partner with no other ties. That's not what I'm interested in.
No.
That isn't... I mean...
You want the bigger package?
There's ways and means, do you know what I mean? I'm not interested in that.
Right.
I used to work in a bar where men used to think that they were the be-all and the end-all of my problems. They'd nearly haul me out of the bar, thinking, I'll sort you out, this is what you need.
Oh, I'll give you a good seeing to and you'll be fine.
These guys, their wives could be at the other end of the bar, you know. But I mean, sex is not the answer to anything. A loving relationship is a wonderful thing. You know,
And the clock is ticking. So are you nervous?
the clock is ticking for what, though?
The clock is ticking for enjoying the company of somebody before you get the bus pass.
Oh, no, I don't think so. I think I wouldn't be in
No compromise.
fear of, you know, ending up alone or anything like that. No, there
Would
is
you?
no
Well,
clock,
how would
really.
you? How would you feel though if several years from now you were to come back to me and say, "Well, actually, nobody. I kept my standards high. I set my sights at a particular level, and I maintained that sense of dignity about what I needed in a relationship, what I demanded in a relationship, and I just never got it. And now,
But I think that in all those years' time, if that were the case, if that were the scenario, I would have done absolutely everything else that I wanted to do
Yeah.
with my life as well. I wouldn't put my life on hold just because I don't have a relationship.
it's one text here from I presume it's a fella says, "Tell her to get a toy boy. I'll be her toy boy. She sounds sexy."
I am sexy, very sexy.
Absolutely no doubt you are. And listen, come back to me, will you? And maybe, let's see, in the new year and tell me how you're getting on.
I'd love to.
Okay.
I'd love to, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you get any offers there for me, send them my way.
Well, you know, I'm often asked, because I do have a couple of single female pals, and they would say, you know, is there nobody you could introduce me to? And I go, first of all, most of the lads that I know probably wouldn't be suitable for you for selection of reasons. They're laughing out in the control room. 'Cause they know some of them. And then really when I stop and think, and I genuinely stop and think, I think, well, actually, I don't really know any single fellas, really.
Yeah. They're hard to come by. But I'm sure they're out there, you know.
But I'm scheduled to look under some of the beds at home, so if I find one, I'll give you a shout.
Oh, if they're toy boys, send them on.
Okay, you know, well, you sound like you deserve a chance. Good morning.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Waiting for warm embrace. I'm living in the space. I'm following your trace. Tell me what's going on. Tell me what's going on. I'm gonna make it quick. Girl, have you ever seen? Oh, baby, come to me. Baby, just come to me. Don't break my heart tonight. Swinging my soul inside. Baby, just come to me. Be what you wanna be. Using your fantasy. I need your soul to see. Baby, just come to me.
Russian man accused of murdering 49 people asked a court on Tuesday to add another 11 victims to his tally and told the jury when he first strangled a man it was like falling in love for the first time. Supermarket worker Alexander Pakushkin, 33 years of age, has been branded the chessboard murderer by Russian newspapers because he hoped to put a coin on every square of a 64-place chessboard for each murder he committed. Reuters Moscow correspondent Conor Sweeney first told the Gerry Ryan Show about this case some time ago, and he now joins us from Moscow, actually outside the courtroom at the trial of this man, and he's going to give us an update on how developments are going. Conor, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Gerry. I'm just going to have to keep my voice down a little low or I'll get into trouble here.
Okay, good man. Certainly he's beginning to reveal himself to a much greater degree now, isn't he?
Well, there were certainly a few indications in the pre-trial hearings where on a few occasions he lashed out a bit and was quite aggressive. The first day that I was there when the trial began, he was fairly quiet and subdued. And then yesterday he decided to put on a show, and the feeling was that he was being deliberately provocative and making gestures as if he was strangling people to try and play to the gallery to shock the jury. And of course there's also relatives of people here who are believed to be his victims who are watching him behave like this and say some fairly outrageous things.
Can you remind listeners who may not have heard you the last time how this man got his name, the chessboard killer?
Well, I should start at the beginning. The story is that this man is 33 years old. He's a supermarket worker from Moscow. And when he was 19, he killed a friend of his. And then he didn't really go on a killing spree until about 3 or 4 years ago. And he's certainly on trial for 49 murders. And then the question is about a few more killings that he may or may not be responsible for. Now, the chessboard link comes from the fact that he put a piece or a coin on a chessboard every time he killed somebody. And he got up as far as 63 pieces, he says. Now, he's only been tried for 49. The way he killed people was also quite grotesque. He used to lure people with vodka to a secluded part of a large park on the edge of Moscow and then smash their skulls in with a hammer in most cases. In other times he threw people into a sewage pit. So that's the background to the case. Now, for any...
In fact, the vodka issue was very much his signature, wasn't it? He would leave the empty vodka bottles sometimes in their shattered skulls. Exactly.
And the way he was eventually caught was because he went for a walk with a woman who worked with him, and she left a note at home just to say, I've gone for a walk with this guy, and here's my number. And although he knew she'd left contact details, he still took a chance, and he killed her, and that's how he was caught in the end. It's also a bit, the trial is a little bit confusing in the sense that he does admit killing people, so we can't really say he's an alleged killer. He admits he killed people. The question that the trial has to consider is really whether he was in a fit state of mind or whether he is psychiatrically insane. That's really the case for the jury, and you could argue that perhaps what he's trying to do, although psychiatrists have judged him fit to stand trial here in Moscow, perhaps he's trying to put on a show to the court to give an alternative impression.
Now, the prosecutors have charged him with 49 murders, right? In terms of a sample, it's enormous. He himself, though, has asked for more cases to be taken into account. Well, sick as it sounds, it could just simply be because he's trying to get into the record books, and he possibly didn't kill these people. That's the truth, we just don't know. There was a man called Andrei Chikatilo who in 1992 was convicted for killing 52 people. And it certainly seems that what this guy is trying to do is beat that record. And of course, if he's only convicted for 49, well, that's not quite good enough. So it's possible he didn't kill these other people, though, of course, we just don't know. But he's claiming he made 63, which would be one short of the full 64 squares on a chessboard. But would certainly put him into the record books, wouldn't it? Which is obviously what he's looking for. Now, you mentioned the woman who became his nemesis, as it were, because of the note that she left.
Yes.
Now, this is a 19-year-old woman who survived his attack by clambering out of the sewage pit. She is one of 100 witnesses expected to testify in the trial. Now, her story, Marina Vericheva, is quite extraordinary as well, isn't it?
Well, I mean, she was 6 months pregnant at the time, and he threw her into the pit and presumed she was going to die, and she treaded water for an hour inside a sewage pit and gradually managed to clamber up the sides of the very slippery slopes and alert the authorities. So that's how she survived.
And has she spoken out in public yet, has she?
No, that's the kind of thing that we're expecting to come up in court in the next few days. We've been still hearing a lot of the arguments of the prosecution that's been put forward, and then yesterday was the first time that Petrushkin himself took the stand.
Now, he has quite an eloquent tone on occasion when, for instance, in the televised confession, which you told us about last year, which took place shortly after his detention. Could you imagine going to RT and saying you wanted to interview this fella? Yes, that's who I've got on Ryan Confidential this Thursday, lads. What do you think? He told police that a life without murder was a life without food. Now, he's made an equally fanciful declaration from the courtroom about his first killing.
He did. He said, a murder is like your first love. You never forget it. And then he said, and he pointed out that this was somebody he knew, and that he then sent his friend to heaven. And he also said that the closer the person is to you, and the better you know them, then the more pleasurable it is to kill them. So that's his perspective.
And the reaction of the jury when he's saying this, because I gather he's playing them like a violin.
Well, I think they don't know what to think, because I think the jury are also concerned, of course, that there are relatives there who are watching this. I've spoken to some relatives, not in the last day or two, but when this first came up. And so it's extremely difficult for them to hear this man joking away and belittling the way he killed their family members.
What's their reaction, Conor, in the court?
Well, it's fairly subdued. In fact, that's why I'm keeping my voice down, so I don't get into trouble with the judge. I'm told I could take this call once I kept my voice down. So I mean, it's a pretty well-ruled court with a lot of people basically don't step out of line.
Is he protected? We have seen in trials like this before in the former Soviet Union, very extensive and elaborate security around the accused for fear that somebody might kill him. This is, of course, while not trying to describe Russia today as the Wild West, but certainly it's a place where the rule of the gun is equal to the rule of law.
Well, I wouldn't describe his security as enormous. Where I'm standing right now and looking is you'd have to go through kind of a barred gateway to go down to his holding cell. So if the court breaks up in the next few minutes, he could actually walk right past us with literally nothing more than bars in between. Inside the courtroom, he's in a kind of a large caged area, but it's not glassed in, and it's quite clear. When he enters the courtroom, he has his hands handcuffed behind his back, and then they're unhandcuffed. Now, there are some police in court with holstered guns, but that's not unusual in Russia. And in order to get into the courtroom complex, it's a modern courtroom on the outskirts of the city. Yes, I did have to go through a metal detector, but not terribly elaborate security.
Now, this interview that he gave last year after his detention, he was arrested. I think he'd been charged at this stage, hadn't he?
Yes, I think so.
And yet he was able to appear in, a substantial television interview. Obviously, it's no holds barred over there.
I mean, it's. I don't fully understand it myself, but he appeared, and any of your listeners who can speak Russian, I suspect there's a few these days. It's ntv.ru. NTV is the name of the TV channel. Yeah. And if they go in there and search around, they'll find it. It's still on. It's still in there. The actual recording of the interview. It seems that basically people here can give interviews before they're convicted, and that's what's a little confusing. And,
now, I presume he wasn't on bail, so the interview would have taken place in his place of detention.
Yes, and I've of course, it therefore would have taken place with the cooperation of the.
Is there a reason?
prosecutor.
Do you think the authorities have a reason for allowing that?
I think the reason may be to show that they've caught this guy.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
And that they're doing something about this.
And that they're doing something about it, I think.
Now, he has also said, I killed in order to live, because when you kill, you want to live. You should not credit the police with catching me. He's very keen for people to know that he gave himself up, isn't he?
Yeah, except I don't think that's quite true either.
You think that's bunk, do you?
I think that's bunk, yeah. Now, did the police do, they weren't exactly fast on the case. But you see, he did deliberately target, apart from the first person, and whose family had wondered what happened to him, and there had been a missing case file on that person for some time. But a lot of the people he befriended were perhaps illegal immigrants, people on the margins, down and out. They weren't people who were automatically noted as missing, you see. So that's why this was allowed to continue for so long. And as far as I know, 14 bodies have been recovered. So there still remains a little bit of a question mark about precisely how many people he killed, and whether even he did kill as many as the state is suggesting he killed.
Now, I'm looking at a photograph of him. He's a handsome man. In fact, he bears a resemblance to Jeffrey Dahmer.
Well, I was. That's actually what struck me most looking at him in court the first time, was just how completely unstriking he was.
Yeah.
I think that's the I was lost for words there. He could just be anyone walking.
In other words,
down the street.
he's not stereotypically evil looking. He doesn't look like Rasputin.
No, and he doesn't look like Hannibal. He doesn't
Hannibal
have
Lecter,
Lecter kind of cliched stuff. He really could be the regular guy sitting opposite me on the metro coming out here today.
Well, finally, what's next then? Where does it go from here?
Well, basically, this is going to be a very lengthy trial, and there was a few stops and starts while they picked the jury. That's now underway, so it's probably going to be a couple of weeks.
Okay,
and he's inevitably going to be convicted. The question is...
sorry, finally, that was I should have said that was my penultimate question. If he is convicted, does the death sentence still apply in this region?
That's a very interesting question, in the sense that no, it doesn't really. The last guy we talked about, Andrei Chikatilo, he was executed in 1994. Now, since then, Russia joined the Council of Europe, which is not the EU, but it's a broad human rights watchdog. So they have a moratorium on the death sentence. They've stuck to it, and they haven't carried out a death sentence ever since. So they would be breaching that commitment.
And they're unlikely to do that.
And the talk, it's certainly not being talked up that they're going to do that. But
all right, Conor Sweeney, thank you very much indeed for taking time out from the trial this morning. And good morning. I've no doubt we'll talk again. Good morning.
It's Bertie, bitch. And Stan, so it is. Steve, this man here, Eamon Dunphy, is really doing us some serious damage. Bertie, no. Well, you're testifying against me in the bleeding tribunal, Eamon.
Yeah, and it looks like he's going to put me out of the job.
What are we going to do with him, Stan?
Guys, I can explain.
It's too late for that, Eamon.
Stan, please. Sick of all his conversation.
It's a useless radio programme.
Sickened by his crazy eyebrows.
Whiskey nose is so disjointed.
How dare you? I drink vodka.
Dunphy, you're a wrinkly ding.
I'll take him down when there's no one around. I'll get him drunk first.
Great.
We'll get him blotto.
I don't like the sound of this.
The mob will be waiting to take him to Dundalk after his show.
Oh, please, not the dog. And with one blow, he'll be castrated.
Ow. Dunphy, you're a whore. You're a whore. A media whore.
Dunphy, you're a bore. You're a bore. Bertie, stand no more.
Dunphy talking shite all the time. Talking shite.
Please. Dunphy's never right. Never right. We'll castrate you right. Yeah, Dunphy.
What?
And we're going to shave off those famous eyebrows of yours.
No, please. And we're going to burn that bloody annoying tweed suit of yours too.
Wait. Yeah.
No, guys, I can explain. Just give me a chance. What are you talking about? I'm the sender of attention.
Bleeding attention seeker.
Newspapers, radio and TV.
You're everywhere.
You got me in a crazy position. If you're on a mission, think twice before you snip. Have to go on the tear, so I'll need all my hair
wearing special eyebrows. Cut them off. My special eyebrows. Shave them. So if you have to castrate me, then please don't shave off my bloody eyebrows. You're a tool. No. You're a tool. No. Taking us for fools. Dunphy, you're a prune. No. Shriveled prune. Bertie, stand still rule. No. Dunphy talking shite. No. All the time. No. Talking shite. Dunphy's never right. Never right. We'll castrate you right. Bleeding reporters. Charlie Bird. Taoiseach, why do you want to castrate Eamon Dunphy? Because he's joining up with all the other Muppets in the tribunal. Mahan, Gilmartin and Pinocchio. Dumber and dumberer. Kevin Myers there. Steve, you're blaming Eamon's polemical soliloquies for leading the lumpen proletariat against you, but was it not in fact your egregious management that has brought you to such a dystopia? If any of that means was it Dunphy what done it, then the answer is yeah. Oh, please. Dunphy, you're a hooer, a media hooer. No. Dunphy, you're a prune, shriveled prune. Bertie, stand still rule. No. Dunphy talking shite all the time, talking shite. Hey. Dunphy's never right. We'll castrate you right. Say what you like, guys, but your days are numbered. I will be here forever.
Now, Peter Keeney is on the line. Good morning to you, Peter. Welcome
Gerry,
back.
How are you?
How long is it since you and I spoke?
We spoke last year after the death of my daughter in 2006 in July in Cove in County Cork.
That's right, and you spoke to us of your pain and passionately about Shola.
Indeed.
And Thomas Kennedy, and indeed what you'd like to do to him if you'd been able to get into a room by yourself with him.
Absolutely.
And I presume you still feel pretty much the same way.
Well, it hasn't changed, no.
No, and what you said to us that day was very moving, and I'm sure not a minute goes by that Shola's not in your thoughts and your family's thoughts.
Oh, absolutely. But not a day passes without us thinking about her, to be honest with you, But
you were listening this morning, and I have no doubt you've got some opinion upon this subject in relation to what Justice Carney was saying at the legal conference.
I do indeed, and to be honest with you, first of all, let me congratulate Judge Paul Carney, because he is a normal human being like everyone else.
Oh, absolutely, yes. And I tried to make that as, not only a normal human being, but a fine judge with an enormous workload.
And a gentleman, in every sense of the word. Now,
I think that's a given, that goes without saying.
This is, and no, I've been in Dublin there 3 weeks ago at a memorial service for all the people who died. It was organised by Advic, and Justice Paul Carney came to the service, which I thought was very moving, and he spoke to everyone individually, which I thought was very nice.
And he calls it as he believes he sees it.
Absolutely.
Doesn't mean he's always right.
Absolutely. But again, getting back to Magella Houlihan's impact statement, now my heart goes out to Magella and her family and everything else. But again, where an impact statement is concerned, it's a sworn statement. And basically, it's like my ex-wife Carol and myself, both of us had to give an impact statement on that day. And it's very hard to put into a few lines of your child's life.
Now, you were warned.
We were absolutely warned not to veer off what you were.
Who said that to you at the time? Your own.
Well, the chief prosecution for the court for the court. And that day, he said, whatever impact statement you make is what you do, and you don't veer off that.
Yeah.
You keep to what's there.
Were you instructed as to what you could and could not say in it?
Well, absolutely. But the harrowing part of this was that Thomas Kennedy got to read those statements before we actually said anything. So basically, if he wasn't happy with anything, we'd have to change it.
Well, what do you feel about that?
Absolutely appalled.
Ridiculous, isn't
absolutely, it? But he actually gets to see that. So if there's anything that jeopardises him in any sense of the word, we have to change it. But my point being is that it's the last voice you can give your child.
Yeah.
And I can understand Magella's frustration and everything else, but I can also understand Paul Carney sitting there on the bench. Now, as you're reading your impact statement to the judge, he's also reading the impact statement in front of him.
Yeah.
And next minute, all of a sudden, Magella veered off, and he's saying, stop a second, this is not wrote down here.
Yeah, but also what does he do? Does he leap down from the bench and stop her?
But at
which point he would appear like the most heartless man in the world,
absolutely.
Even if he was technically correct in doing so.
I do agree there. Yeah. But my point being is that, there was a big decision after this whether an impact statements could be read out in the future.
Yeah.
And she could have jeopardised that for other families. And believe you me, it's hard enough going through what she had to go through and what I had to go through. And it's very hard to read out an impact statement.
I agree with you 100%. Technically, I agree with you 100%. But it does once again seem to have the sheen of prejudice in favour of the person who has carried out the murder.
I absolutely agree with you. And as I go on, facing into my second year without Shola, there is more rights for the person who committed the murder, bar the victims left behind. And it's so sad because everything seems to be in their favour.
Now, mind you, if I was standing up in the dock and I had been accused of something, I would be very happy and very pleased that, number one, I was innocent until proved guilty, and number two, that the rules of evidence were rigorously applied while I tried to defend myself. I mean, that goes without saying. We have a good system.
Absolutely.
But I often think that the system doesn't fully appreciate or understand the pain of the victim. It's only very recently, within my short lifetime and your short lifetime, that women, for instance, have been given a voice in rape trials.
Right.
They were considered to be completely an accessory to the thing, and their voices were not heard. You were even allowed the defence that a woman was wearing a sexually provocative outfit.
Right.
And therefore the fella couldn't help himself. Now, we seem to be in a conundrum at the moment. A lot of confusion seems to reign over the voice that should be given to people like you.
Absolutely.
And I don't know whether the court fully, from a holistic point of view, knows where it's going, and I don't know whether any of us know where we're going with it either.
But I just feel in my heart and soul that I think Magella is taking this a little bit too personal for the simple reason that the judge was doing his job.
He used very strong words, so he said it was scandalous in his initial draft of his speech.
But basically, he was doing his
Should
job.
you not just keep your gob shut when you're dealing with somebody going through such pain?
But in a court of law, as you said, in a court of law, basically, is that you're giving all these documents are sworn in.
Yeah.
So it's what you say is based on what you wrote.
And it's not a church, is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. So, basically, okay, you can send frustration. So if she had those frustrations, why didn't she write them in beforehand?
Well, I presume she didn't write them in beforehand.
You know what I mean? If she
I
did,
presume she didn't because...
She'd have given the option. She could have had the option then of whether to take it out or left it.
Actually, I can't answer that question.
I know, but my heart breaks with because I have actually met the woman and everything else. But again, is that, look, we were told what you write down is going to be scanned and going to be looked over, and what is there is what you read out. And you don't veer off it. You keep to that.
And these are the rules. And these are the rules.
And these are the rules. And basically, you'll be stopped if you do veer off it. And it'll be null and void, basically. It won't be acceptable.
There is I think the worry, though, and maybe you could include me and others in my profession today, in your opinion about Magella. You could have sympathy, but also feel that maybe, we're jeopardising the future, for instance, of the victim impact statement.
That's basically what I'm talking about, to be honest with you.
But what I worry about, though, is Paul Carney saying that, vigorous, emotional commentary in the media is inappropriate on these occasions?
No, I don't think so. Because, as I said again, he's a man that sits there day after day listening to all these horrific trials and everything. And to me, I feel he's a very fair man.
But you read what he said about Joe Duffy.
I did indeed.
What do you think of that?
Then again, basically, he's a human being as well.
Let me read this out to you. Finally, we got an interesting insight into how Mr. Joe Duffy operates in the explosive atmosphere after sentence being imposed. In ignorance of who he was, one of Mr. Duffy's researchers approached a court official looking for comment. This shatters the myth of Mr. Duffy being a kindly old gentleman, God, who sits by his telephone in Dublin waiting for it to ring. I mean, what does that mean to you? What do you take out of that?
Well, basically, I think the judge was just saying there, look, that again, the public media outside are just scaremongers. They're looking for any story at all they can get, basically. You know what I mean? To make headlines. That's what I read from that myself personally, but I don't think there was a blur specifically on Joe Duffy. He was just basically talking about media in general.
Well, I mean, he mentions Joe Duffy in the comment.
Well, I suppose maybe that's the one.
Joe Duffy has given a voice to thousands and thousands of people.
Yeah, but maybe it was just the fact that was the one you heard on the day. There could be plenty of other RT and broadcasting stations that had different views.
Well, I read out the entire victim impact statement on the day.
Right.
Yeah, there was an incredible reaction to it, if I recall.
Oh, absolutely, and I mean, my heart bleeds, and under dreadful circumstances. But again, as I said, it was the fact that we were warned going in there, and we were told what you.
And I presume that you feel compromised to a degree, Peter. That look, myself and my wife, we stuck by the rules.
Absolutely.
Even though it pained us to do so.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'd love to shout from the rooftops. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, you do now shout from the rooftops. I mean,
absolutely.
I mean, I think really, I say, I quote, that bastard has taken everything from me.
Absolutely.
And, you know, you suggest a couple of things I'm reading
Yep.
from the Mirror at the time, written by Deirdre O'Donovan, Sunday Mirror, of December the 10th last year. And really, you'd like to have a go at this fella.
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt. Yeah. Without a doubt, you know what I mean? Without a doubt. And I mean, again, I can understand Magella's frustration even more so now, knowing that...
Well, the next thing we'll hear now is that you shouldn't be saying that you're inciting people to violence, and that you're making a statement that you're going to murder Thomas Kennedy yourself. But that'll be the next thing you'll hear.
I truly understand that, but I think any parent that's gone through the loss of a child through murder would understand what I'm talking about.
Absolutely, but I'm saying that if we take all this argument, as it's developed since Paul Carney's statements at the conference, if we take all that argument, you should just keep your mouth shut, basically. Now, the controversial part of the speech, of course, is about Magella's, or her victim impact statement, should I say. It wasn't a speech. Is her remarks about the semen. Let's remind ourselves of that, okay?
I do.
Hold on a second.
Our doctors have told us we have to get on with our lives. But how can we, when semen was found on his body? Who would kill someone for throwing stones? If he threw stones, why were there no marks on the car? If it was an accident, why didn't Wayne O'Donoghue call me, or an ambulance, or a doctor? Why were there no fingerprints on Rob's phone, not even his own? Who wiped it clean and deleted some of the images from it? His phone showed he got a call from Wayne at 6:30 a.m. Why would a 20-year-old call an 11-year-old at that time of the morning? What was Robert doing in Wayne's bedroom at 7:30 that morning, when he was supposed to be at a sleepover in a friend's house? Why did my little boy ring 999 later that morning, as his phone shows he did? Why were Robert's two runners off when he was supposed to be cycling? Whatever happens here today, even if we do move house, even if we left the country, there is no place to go. There is no place to hide from this nightmare, which is there every minute of every hour of every day.
Now, very powerful stuff, isn't it?
Stuff, yeah, indeed.
And yes, you're completely correct in saying that you were not allowed to give vent to some of the things that you'd like to have said in your victim impact statement, and she did.
Yep.
Do you believe that she's telling lies there in any part of that?
Well, she's speaking as a mother losing her son, and that I do understand.
But do you believe that she made up any of that, or that?
Well,
no.
I don't think she did.
No.
Without a reason, I don't think it. But my point, basically, Terry, why I rang it this morning was basically to say that
she broke the rules, and that could jeopardise it for everybody
for everyone
else.
Yeah, in the future, and basically is that it's the last voice you can give your child in a court of law, and basically, you can't put into, you try to put a lifetime into a couple of minutes, and it's very, very hard. And basically, I was making the point of Shola's life and what life was going to be without her, and what life was beforehand. And basically, my point was that you're given the guideline and you don't veer off it. And, again, with saying that if she had stuck to her original statement, maybe things would have turned out differently for her.
But imagine, though, I mean, you can tell me what it's like. Maybe you've had to live with this. There are things there, and I know the thing that's exercising Paul Carney's frustration to a huge degree is the remark about the semen. I think he feels very strongly that this indicated that this was some sort of sex crime, right?
Absolutely.
Magella Houlihan is saying that she knows that there was semen and she just wants an explanation. Now, I think if she hadn't gotten to say that, I think she might have gone mad, to be honest.
I can well understand, but...
So, what... I mean, is there anything in your head that you weren't able to get out that day like that? That... Can you understand?
I do understand because, again, I'm fighting very hard at the moment because I do know this guy raped my daughter as well. And again, with saying that, but I knew that from a very early stage. And it's to prove it. You see, just like Magella saying there was semen, but you have to go through all the evidence.
He raped your daughter?
Yeah.
Was he convicted of that?
No. He just got a mandatory life sentence.
And you weren't allowed to say that?
And I wasn't allowed to say it.
How do you know he raped her?
Well, basically from forensic evidence and, from the book of evidence and, from doctors' reports and from the state pathologist reports and stuff like that, which I'm working hard at the moment to actually clarify everything up and get everything, together and hopefully bring a conviction to the court for that purpose alone.
So you're not letting that go, sure?
I'm not letting it go at all. And as I said again, there is ways and means. And on the day where Michelle said what she said, there is places you can go to actually confirm this, and there is places you can go to get the proper evidence. Do you know what I mean? But it's a lot of hard work. And I mean, it is a year. And
are you revisiting the evidence, Peter?
Oh, I'm absolutely.
And would you like to see charges of rape brought against Thomas Kennedy?
Absolutely. And I'm working very hard at the moment. On it.
I'm beginning to get a good feel for what it must be like to have to stand there and make this statement about your child, particularly in the circumstances that Majella Houlihan found herself, and indeed that you found yourself.
Absolutely.
To be asked to divest yourself of the emotion and the grief and the pain experienced by a parent, to divest yourself of that and give a voice to the victim, I actually think it's almost impossible.
Well, we'll try it. I'll go as far as I can go to get the proper truth out.
Well, I wish you the best of luck. And if there's anything at any time we can ever do for you, please come to us.
Thanks very much indeed, Gerry.
Gerry